Hey guys, welcome back to another video. My name's Bagel, and today I wanted to talk about something that has been going on in the tech industry for what feels like forever, but it's honestly probably been about 3 years. And that is basically how AI is disrupting the industry, causing mass layoffs, causing all sorts of issues, and the trade-off that companies are making for this AI. So I'm sure basically anyone in the industry or even outside of the industry knows that AI has been having a massive disruption. Companies are spending billions and billions of dollars on, well, that I guess that's kind of a questionable investments on AI. It's usually sort of a blanket term used without really specifics of what they're investing in or why. I think the go-to line from places like Meta or Amazon or these really huge tech companies is they are basically laying people off to clear out money so that they can invest in data centers, invest in the actual hardware and costs of developing these frontier models. It's incredibly expensive to train these models, and all these big tech companies are sort of in a race right now of who can have the best model, who will sort of define the AI generation of work, essentially, and who will basically be the last one standing after all this money is burnt, basically. And then on the other hand, you have smaller companies that are also doing mass layoffs. And this is where it becomes a little bit less clear on the reasoning behind it. You think of your like SaaS companies, software, pure software companies, places like Adobe or any kind of app or software you would use on your computer or phone. These companies are also doing massive layoffs, and it's really questionable why. It's not exactly clear when they release statements or however they do the layoffs what exactly this money is going to. They say it's AI, or another common thing is they say it's a reorg or a reorganization. They're moving people around, or AI has somehow changed how this company needs to function, even though it's a pretty simple software app. For some reason, AI has fundamentally changed, how this company needs to operate, and then because of that, they're going to lay off, 20% of the company or whatever. And I wanted to talk about those companies specifically today. I think the big tech companies, again, like the Googles, the Metas, the ones that are actually um, spending massive capex money on data centers and compute power for models. I think, even whether or not it's true and that's what they're going to put the money to, at least it's somewhat defensible. Whereas you have these sort of mid to large size companies, or even small size companies, startups that are doing layoffs, and they say it's either for AI or for a reorg based on AI, and that's where it gets really unclear on what is actually happening in this industry because of AI. And I think the fact that it's really usually hard to understand why these companies are doing layoffs or why they're doing these mass reorgs and 20% reduction in workers and everything else. The fact that it's so difficult to understand why they're doing it and they're so vague about it is kind of the main reason I wanted to make this video and talk about it, because, and this is just my opinion, I'm not a CEO, I don't actually know, but it seems like AI and just the buzzwords surrounding it are basically just being used to hide bad business practices or previous mistakes. I think it's no secret from the early 2020s that there was massive overhiring. You see also the same software companies and apps and everything that have like thousands and thousands of employees to maintain, a pretty basic app that probably isn't really growing. It's kind of just steady coasting along. And, in the past, companies doing layoffs always looked bad. Layoffs were never well received by shareholders and investors. And now that they have this kind of golden buzzword of we're doing layoffs, but it's because of AI, that somehow for some reason is taking away the negative that's usually associated with layoffs. And I think companies are really taking advantage of that. And when people kind of ask the question, is the software industry dead? Is the tech industry dead? Is it still worth it to go to college for computer science, or whatever, cybersecurity, computer science, software engineering, data science, all those kind of tech white collar jobs. A lot of people are questioning if it's still worth it to go into the industry, if it's still worth it to major, if it's still worth it to get a degree. And the main thing that they're pointing out is that all these companies are doing layoffs and they're not hiring right now. And these companies are, using AI as sort of the scapegoat as to why they're doing this. And I think it's incredibly dishonest, but it's also, again, these companies are not your friend. These companies are there to make money, and if they have a golden scapegoat that they can use to lay off 20,000 people or whatever, and not have a share price drop, then obviously they're going to take advantage of that. But I think at the same time, anyone who actually works in this industry, as I do, knows that AI is not a sort of one-size-fits-all solution to every single problem. Companies that are laying off workers, it might be because they are making room in their budgets for AI, but it's not because AI is actually doing anyone's job on its own. I don't care if you work at Google or if you work at, some mom and pop shop doing software development. AI alone is not going to take your job. I do think there are massive benefits to using AI. I do think anyone who sort of sticks their head in the ground and avoids it at all costs is probably going to be left behind in the industry. I don't think it's honestly possible to compete with someone where one is using AI and one isn't. But at the same time, the idea that AI is going to take everyone's job, that white collar workers are no longer going to be needed, I think that is also more marketing and advertisements basically being pushed by the people who would profit off of this. I think it's really damaging to the industry where we have people actively avoiding going to college and majoring in these in software or in computer science, because they're scared that in 5 years or whatever there's going to be no more software engineers. I think that's like a completely ridiculous thing, but I also understand that it's a fair thing to be afraid of right now, because you have basically every company out there saying that's what's going to happen and doing layoffs. And I think that this disconnect between companies are using AI, they're investing a lot of money in it, and they're doing layoffs because of it. And I think them saying that, I remember there's interviews out there of the CEOs of like Salesforce and other like software companies saying, yeah, we don't really plan to hire any more software engineers. And that was, a couple years ago now, maybe a year or two ago. And since then, they are obviously still hiring software engineers. They have not fired all their software engineers. I think we just need to take a better look at the economy to understand why this is happening. The economy is in a terrible place right now with interest rates so high. It's not a good time to invest in new technology and new ideas. So companies are kind of trying to stay as profitable as possible and kind of hold out until the economy improves. And I think they're doing layoffs to help in that effort. And I think instead of being honest about that, they're using the AI scapegoat as sort of the get out of jail free card, so that investors aren't scared that this company's not performing well. You see layoffs and you think that's a bad thing until you see layoffs because of they're investing in AI, or a reorg because of AI or whatever, and then suddenly it's not as scary anymore to investors. So I just wanted to talk about that today a little bit. I think anyone out there questioning if it's still worth it to try to get into the tech industry, it's still worth it to try to do computer science. I kind of always have said the same thing when people ask me that, and my answer is, if you are genuinely interested in working in the industry, if you are genuinely interested and love programming or security or data science or whatever you're doing, I still 100% think it's a great career to get into. I do think right now it's incredibly difficult to get into it, but I think that can be said about a lot of industries, right? That's just where our economy is right now. And one last thing I wanted to bring up was just, I really want to encourage people to try and read between the lines when it comes to all of this news and headlines that's coming about AI, about the same 6 companies giving each other $100 billion every couple months, passing the money between them, and then another company comes out and says they're laying off 10% of their workforce because of AI. I'm not, I understand that it sucks to be one of those people getting laid off. If you have been laid off, I'm sorry. It's a terrible thing to go through. I just think it's just really dishonest, and I think it's something that people really need to dig in deeper with when it comes to why these layoffs are justified and what's really going on behind the scenes. I'm not trying to say I don't believe in AI or that I hate it or that I think it's going to die. Like, obviously I don't think, AI I think is here to stay. It's changed the industry and the world, and I don't think it's going anywhere, but at the same time, I think it's very dishonest for companies to put all of the blame of the effects of a bad economy and try to use AI as a scapegoat to get out of what is otherwise poor business management. But anyway, that's all I got for you guys. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.